Good morning, church.
Morning, Caleb.
I'm going to apologize. That was like the third time everybody said good morning to you guys. So, in case you guys don't know, my name's Caleb. A bit nervous. This is my first time speaking up here. And through my nervousness, I thought back to a person who was a little bit nervous himself to do God's work. And that guy is Moses. We all know Moses as the great person that pushed the Israelites out of Egypt and to the new promised land. But before that, he was a bit of a hopeless guy. In Exodus 2:11, by the way, we're going to be in Exodus pretty much this whole time, he actually had killed an Egyptian slave driver. And the Egyptians knew and Pharaoh knew, and they kind of drove him out of the city because it wasn't a very popular thing back then, killing their slave drivers. But in Exodus 3, God appears to him in a burning bush, and Moses wasn't too excited about that. In chapter 4, verse 11, this is Moses to God. Moses said to the Lord, "O Lord, I have never been eloquent neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, "O Lord, please send someone else to do it." Now, Moses, he was a bit afraid. If God's telling you to go to one of currently the most powerful kingdoms and get rid of their slaves and tell the Pharaoh that you're wrong and that these are my people and I have to let them go, you're going to be a bit afraid. But God gives him hope. And this hope changes Moses. So much so, much later on in Exodus, after the Israelites have walked out, he is actually able to change God's mind. And I'm going to read that to you. Now, I'll set the scene. The Israelites at this point have been worshiping an idol. And God is planning to completely destroy them. Get rid of the people that he had forced out of Israel, or out of Egypt. But this is what Moses says. But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. "O Lord," he said, "why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, 'It was with evil intent he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and wipe them off the face of the earth'? Turn from your fierce anger and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servant Abraham and Isaac and Israel, who you swore by your own self. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give you your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever." Then the Lord relented and did not bring disaster upon his people. Now, that is the big transition for Moses. He goes from a hopeless man to one who is now full of hope, and he can change pretty much the entire future of Israel. But Moses wasn't the only one who went through this big transition because of hope. The Israelites themselves went through this. When Moses first showed up, Pharaoh wasn't too happy to punish them, and so they were kind of angry at Moses at the very beginning. But they changed throughout all of this. They go from this tiny little nation of slaves to free people, and then to one of the fastest conquering armies in the entire world. They take over the promised land quite quickly when they actually get there. And that's because of their hope in God. And their hope in God changes them drastically. Now, hope is not an uncommon thing in the Bible. We see it in the story of David. The Israelites are about to be conquered by these Philistines. And this tiny boy, maybe about half my height, comes up and kills one man that's probably twice my height. And then later on, we have Esther, who was a Jew, and Xerxes had commanded that all the Jews were going to be killed, starting with one of her friends, Mordecai. And then she approaches the king and says, "I am a Jew," and eventually changes Xerxes' mind and saves all the Israelites. This message of hope isn't uncommon. In fact, 100 years down the line, God would send his only son, and that son would be Jesus. And he would give one of the most powerful messages of hope, die on the cross, and change not only Israel, but the rest of the world. See, Our God is a God of hope. And that hope that he gives us, that hope is transforming. And with that, I'd like to welcome the worship team. And if you guys would like to know anything else about the